Welcome back, Fantasy Endgame community. I'm Pierre, he's Chris. We're going to give you some of our favorite booms, busts, and breakouts for 2022 fantasy football. Let's do booms first. Give me a guy who you think is a riser heading into the season.
Well, if you've listened to me at all this offseason, you know I've been high on Michael Pittman pretty much since day one. I got higher on Michael Pittman when they signed Matt Ryan, but I'm even higher on Michael Pittman now after seeing his reception perception numbers off the charts, unbelievably good. I don't think people realize how actually good Michael Pittman is at football. An elite separator, elite versus man, elite versus zone, elite versus press, can win at every single level. And don't forget, this guy is 6'4" and over 220 pounds. He can win contested catches. He can win at the catch point. He can win pretty much every single way. And he got a legit QB upgrade this year, not one of these, Carson Wentz upgrades or Baker Mayfield upgrades that everybody's all excited about. No, he got a real QB upgrade with Matt Ryan, who is significantly better than Carson Wentz was last year and is still way better than people think he is because he was stuck in a terrible Atlanta offense behind a terrible Atlanta offensive line. Michael Pittman is absolutely going to smash this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's an early second round pick, maybe even a late first round pick in drafts next year. And people are ignoring him because he's Michael Pittman. He hasn't really done that much. I'm not. I'm drafting him anywhere I can because I really think he has top 10, maybe even top 5 upside this year.
We've heard all offseason already about how excited he is to have Matt Ryan at quarterback. There's chemistry going there. Really aren't a lot of quality options at receiver behind him. Nobody who would threaten him. So I'm completely there with you. Pittman, definitely ready to boom. All right, now you haven't heard a lot this offseason about David Montgomery of the Bears. There's really not much happening. It's going to be probably not a dynamic offense, honestly. Justin Fields should take a step forward, but they didn't really add a lot of pieces also on offense. It's going to be kind of what you saw toward the end of last season, except, they have a real coaching staff now. Number one, we knew a lot of the problems on that offense were Matt Nagy. I think we're really going to see them get back to basics and run the ball, focus on just being an efficient offense. So let me tell you, what you want in fantasy is a running back who's going to touch the ball a lot. Last year, Montgomery was 9th in the league in rush attempts among running backs, and that was with missing 4 games. This year, I really think they're going to run the ball more in order to protect Fields, right, to some extent, but also they're just going to be a run-based offense. They have a defensive-minded guy as a coach. They're a team that honestly can't afford to sit back and throw the ball a ton. I wouldn't be surprised if David Montgomery was top 3 in rush attempts, and that's what you're looking for. I think we're going to see him get back to his previous year level, and he's going to be a really solid RB2 that is going, I think, way too late. All right, now let's get to the busts. All right, so a guy that you're probably just avoiding because you don't see good things happening this year.
Yeah, I don't see good things happening for Dalvin Cook. I mean, Dalvin Cook will be fine probably, but he's not going to be worth a first-round pick, not even close. We saw the beginning of the decline last year. His efficiency went down as far as his yards per carry. He only scored 6 touchdowns the first time in the last 3 years. He didn't hit double-digit touchdowns. And look at his touches the last 3 years. 3 years ago, over 300 touches. 2 years ago, over 350 touches. Last year, only 283 touches. And he only played in 1 fewer game. And that's another thing about Dalvin Cook. 14, and 13 games over the last 3 years. You know you're not going to get a full season out of this guy. He's entering his age 27 season. He's never been a prolific pass catcher, never been a huge pass catching guy. His attempts went down by 3 per game last year. And now this offense is going to be drastically different. They're going to be more pass heavy, less of a run heavy team. They're not going to be one of the most run heavy teams in the NFL like they've been in the last few years. I just don't see how Dalvin Cook pays off a first round ADP. I feel like people are drafting him off name value alone. The beginning of the end is here for Dalvin Cook. And I think people who draft him this year are going to regret it and going to wish they went somewhere else in their drafts, especially in the first round.
It's so tough. I'm torn on Cook, honestly, because, I've always thought he's one of the most talented running backs in the league. I think that offense could be a little bit better this year, but I just don't know if they're going to run the ball as much. That's my problem, is it might be a different philosophy here. So we'll see. We'll see about Cook. All right, now this one, it took me a lot of thinking, and the more I really reflect on Deebo Samuel, I I really think we're going to see a big step back. I think the risk is too much based on the fact that he's borderline first round pick these days. All right, early second. Look, he was amazing, right? He was a fantasy league winner for a lot of people. Problem is, all of that is probably not going to happen this year. So first of all, we already know he's not going to be used as a running back because he doesn't want to be, and they've already said he won't be. So you're going to already take a lot of those yards and a lot of that production away. The yards per reception, yes, that's his thing, right? With the ball in his hands, that's when he's dangerous. But there is no guarantee he will be that level of successful, especially when other teams know it's coming. So I think we might see a little bit of regression there. Same thing with touchdowns. Touchdowns are not a sticky stat. There's a good chance he just doesn't score as much. Here's the other thing. The main thing to me, this offense will be different with Trey Lance at quarterback and not necessarily in Debo's favor. Whether Trey Lance is a great quarterback or medium, or low-level quarterback, who knows? But the thing is, Jimmy G, we know the type of quarterback he is. He's going to go through his progressions. He's going to get the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible. He isn't going to be scrambling like Lance will. Lance is going to run because that's one of the things that makes him, such an enticing athlete. That's going to take away opportunities from Samuel. I think this offense will still be good, but I don't think Samuel's going to be as big a part of it. And so what you're drafting him for to be this elite top 5 receiver, I think he drops down enough that he really just doesn't even become a top 10 receiver. I think he's close, but I think he is going to let us down ultimately. All right, and now everyone's favorite, the breakout. Give me a player you think is ready to just completely annihilate fantasy this year.
Well, you just talked about him. No, not Deebo Samuel. He already broke out. Trey Lance. Trey Lance is going to break out this year. There's times in fantasy football that really confuse me. Like, things happen over and over in fantasy football every single year, and people still refuse to believe that it's going to happen. Go back to 2019. Lamar Jackson, entering his second year. We knew he had the rushing upside. We were worried about the throwing. He was kind of a mid-round quarterback, won people fantasy leagues. Go back to 2020. Josh Allen, in the same boat, won people fantasy leagues. Go back to last year. Jalen Hurts, the same boat, won people fantasy leagues. It's going to be Trey Lance this year. You know why? Because of his rushing ability, not because of his throwing ability. Don't comment down below. Don't argue with me about Trey Lance, the thrower. I do not care. This is fantasy football. That rushing upside is so massive that it really doesn't matter what he does through the air. Last year in his 2 starts, he had 110 total rushing yards. That's 55 yards per game. That's 935 yards over the course of a season. That's 93.5 fantasy points just from running the ball. He doesn't have to do that much throwing the ball. If he gives you another 4, 5, or 6 rushing touchdowns, you're talking about 120, 130 fantasy points just from his legs. All he's got to give you is another 170, 180 points through the air. That's nothing. That's literally nothing in fantasy football. He doesn't have to be good throwing the ball. And if he has a Jalen Hurts type year where he's better than everybody thought at throwing the football, or if he has a Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen type year where he's much better at throwing the football than everybody thought, he's absolutely going to crush it this year and win people fantasy championships. And again, like those guys before him, he's going in that 9th, 10th, 11th round range around those other QBs, those statue QBs like Matthew Stafford and guys like that. Take Trey Lance this year. Wait on your QB. Take him as your QB1. Just like I told you with Jalen Hurts last year, you won't regret it. He'll help your team win. And you can get other players at more important positions like running back and wide receiver with your earlier picks.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. That's the type of player that wins leagues. But could Debo kind of bust and Lance break out? Yes, those two things can go together. And it's exactly what you said. Because Lance is so dynamic, especially with his legs, that's going to take away from Debo. And I think the offense might be one of the best in the league, but you have to weigh as far as who's doing what on the field. My breakout might seem kind of obvious. It's Rashad Bateman. He's the #1 receiver there in Baltimore, and you say Baltimore isn't a throwing team, except last year when they were top 10 in pass attempts. They might not be that level this season, but still, they're going to throw the ball, and Bateman's going to be the guy who gets it most of the time. Mark Andrews is there, yes, but aside from that, they just don't have anything in receiving. There's Bateman, and then there's guys like James Proche. Devin Duvernay. Bateman is going to be the guy. You know, I love him. I've always loved him. I had him as soon as a year ago before the NFL draft. My number 2 receiving prospect behind Jamar Chase. 146 targets are now gone with Marquise Brown. You might not realize he got targeted that much because he didn't catch all of them, but that's how much is up for grabs there in Baltimore's offense. We know Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, they're not 100%. They're still missing a lot of their thump there with the running game. They're still going to have to pass quite a bit. Their defense is not like it got great overnight because of the NFL draft. They're still going to be a team that struggles to hold the opposition. So Rashad Bateman is a clear breakout candidate, and I am sticking with him. I don't even mind reaching a few spots to get him. All right, those are the guys that we think might boom, bust, or break out this year. We'll do this again. We want to give you as much information as possible to help you with draft season, which is not even that far away anymore. All right, guys, thanks for watching.